modules. Here is an example risk assessment form for occupational health risks that needs to be registered onto QDMS. Each column represents a field of an essential factor in calculating risk. Now let's log in and provide QDMS with this information. Take note that while there are many specialized variations of risk assessments, the implementation of managing these risks in QDMS is all the same. There's already the option to purchase modules set with the quality standards of particular fields, along with the flexibility of putting into action common risk assessment methods such as 5x5. Okay, now let's begin defining these fields. To start off, we'll click New in the top right corner, and proceed to define Process as our first field. Notice how I did not use number as a field. This is because QDMS inherently keeps track of the numeration of risk assessments. Each field needs to have an explicit field type, which can be text, numbers, or lists. In this case, we have a list. There's a second page on our example form with options for the Processes field, so let's populate the list we just defined by clicking the button labeled Values. Stay put while I add these options for our processes. Looking good, now let's move on with the rest of our fields. Remember to set each field as active when defining them. For the likelihood and severity fields, I've made their field type point list, and added scores across the scale of these lists. Notice how each field has a field code. These field codes can be used as variables in a formula to define calculated fields. Risk score, for example, can be defined as a multiplied result of likelihood and severity. The last field is picture, of which we put the input type to be image, and then we're all set. We have successfully loaded all of the fields from our risk assessment form to QDMS. Now let's design how these fields will be displayed in the form by going to the Function Designer page. With our cursor on the Risk Assessment Detail page, we'll click Fields. Now when we hit New, you should be able to find the fields we had defined earlier, along with the option to set these fields as required when filling out a risk assessment form. What we've done so far is define the fields from our example form, and how they are to be displayed. Next, let's move on to define the actual form composed of these fields. We can do this at the Risk Assessment Form Definitions page under the main menu. I've went ahead and followed QDMS's prompts to create a new form here. Let's look into the details. And voila! There's our form, with all of our defined fields, as well as an asterisk to denote which fields are required. I can freely fill out this form in accord to my current assessment, just as I would on the Excel sheet, but much faster and easier. There is even a precaution tab for establishing what to do if a high risk score is evaluated. This is where our risk assessment and management modules can be integrated with our CAPAs or action modules, which are available to be purchased separately. Finally, once everything is saved and laid out in this system, we have the option to perform periodic reviews and revisions, as well as the capability to generate a visual representation of our submitted form.